probably would have been there had we known each other.
Probably.
I feel like we grew up together separately. So
All right.
awesome. I would like to present Carl with the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Wow.
The LA Jewish Film Festival and the Jewish Journal of Greater Los Angeles congratulate Carl Reiner on his legendary contribution to entertainment. We salute Carl Reiner for his pioneering work in comedy, television, and film as a writer, actor, director, and producer with a level of sophistication and genius that has continued to inspire American humor today. Thank you so much, Carl.
I love this. It's got pictures on it. There's a picture of Mel Brooks, Nana Fabre. This is the Van Dyke show. Oh, this is lovely. I really appreciate this. It will hang in my house where I can see it every day and realize that I'm somebody.
You are somebody. You're a great somebody. That was such a joy to watch, wasn't it, everybody? And I have to ask you many things, but first, what have you seen this in a while?
Not when it first came out. In, I don't know what year it was.
In 73 it came out.
I remember this, and I remember saying it. I heard a woman in the middle of that, near the end, I heard a woman's voice screaming with laughter, the highest pitched laughter, just cackling. And I realized that woman was me. I was screaming with laughter. I dare say that is the single funniest sketch ever done in show.
It's undeniable.
Yes. You know, the thing is that John Cleese, I've never seen it. Somebody sent it over to Monty Pythons to look at. About 2 years ago, he said he had to get up from his chair, lay on the floor, and not look at the screen. He was afraid he was going to die. And it was Sid Caesar's genius. Now, the sketch was written. There's no doubt about the concept of the sketch was written. But everything in it, all of it. By the way, that sketch was supposed to be about 5 or 6 minutes. It went on forever. It was a live show. They kept cutting. You know, when they finally got to put the show on, they realized they had to cut the things to make it work. Because this show ran over. This particular thing ran over. It ran over because Sid committed to the fact that everybody loved each other so much. And when you saw Howie hanging on his leg, none of that was rehearsed. None of that was rehearsed. I didn't know I could pick up Howie like a loaf of bread. We never tried that. That was all because Sid decided to go with the thought of extreme love. It was Sid.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, it looks choreographed.
It's not. It wasn't.
It does, though.
And you know something? When I went out to get him in the audience,
Yeah.
that was, we rehearsed it. I went and reluctantly, I grabbed him and pulled him on stage. When it came to the thing, he decided not to come on stage. That was all they had lived. And when he got on stage, we thought we had him there, and he went down into the audience. And he was smacking people with things, and they had to carry him up on the stage. All they had lived.
It's so beautiful. It's like a musical number,
Yes.
you know, with not just the words, but with the dance of Howie and you. I mean, look how Howie's head pops out between your legs and over here, and then comes out again.
All they had lived. All they had lived.
It is astonishing.
That's why when I saw it for the first time, I heard that cackling laugh.
Yes,
I had
of
never
course.
seen it.
Well, I saw it when I was 16. Somebody took me to a movie theater, a local movie theater that was playing this. I was too young to have seen it live. And they said, oh, you think you're funny? Go watch this guy, right? And you guys. And I went, and I actually fell out of my chair laughing and changed my life.
By the way, Sid Caesar, I got to talk a little about Sid
Yes.
Caesar, who just passed away. A true comic genius. The word is thrown about very often. But I'm going to give you 2 examples of what I'm talking about. Sid Caesar invented the sketch comedy. I mean, invented it in such a way, performed it in such a way that it never was the same after that. But I remember being on, I was this close to him, nose to nose sometimes. I saw him do things I could not believe were possible. I'll tell you one, first of all, we all went to some acting school. Sid never went to any acting school. He was a saxophonist. But he had a thing called sense memory, which Stanislavski talks about, where you pick up something in pantomime and give it heft. You throw a football that has to look a certain way. Sid didn't have any kind of training, and I'll show you something he did. It astounded me. We once were looking for a pantomime for him to do. He was very funny doing pantomimes. So we said, here, have trouble opening a jar of olives. So we gave him, he picked up a fake jar of nothing in his hand, and he started to wrestle with his jar of olives, trying to get the cap off and making all kind of faces. And we realized it was going nowhere. It wasn't funny. But he had gotten the cap off, and we said, Sid, it's not working. We'll try something else. And we went on to, all of a sudden, all of us are laughing. And Sid is looking around. He says, what are you all laughing at? And we said, Sid, did you know what you just did? He says, what did I do? What did I do? He says, you know that jar? Yeah, what about it? Well, here's what had happened. When Sid opened up that jar of olives, and we said it didn't work, let's go on to something else, Sid started thinking about something else. But his sense memory told him he had a jar of olives in his hand and a cap. So without knowing it, he screwed the cap back on, and he's thinking, and he put it down on the table. I mean, that is the greatest sense memory I've ever seen, and he didn't know he had done it. And by the way, when I talk about sense memory, every actor in the world, when they're fake having a cigarette in their mouth, they do this, they put it. Sid was the only actor I know who left a hole for the cigarette and a space in his hand to put. That's the kind of. Now the other thing he did, he had Stanislavski. You talk about Stanislavski. We did a thing called tea and torpedoes once, where we U-boats were out in the ocean, and we're going to load the torpedoes. And he's the captain of the ship, and I'm the second mate. And we're loading a torpedo, and we have this paper mache torpedo. And we hadn't rehearsed it, but we knew it was going to work. And we dropped the torpedo, and he dropped it on his foot. And Sid, without anybody blowing anything into his eyes, he started to cry. Tears would, I'm this close to him, and tears started to well up on his, and a tear fell down his eye. I mean, he had that kind of ability, which is an extraordinary ability. He also, I just remember one thing. We did something where we're in the jungle. He's working for the English government. He's some kind of an official, and he's working with the natives there, trying to make some kind of a rapprochement between the tribes, and they have to drink a drink together. Now, Sid was very worried about getting germs. He was a guy who would never liked to drink from a prop glass. He knew the property master didn't wash them, so he always made believe he was drinking. Now here he had a drink, this big ram's horn, full of gukayucha juice. And by the way, Sid named it gukayucha juice. We said, what is that? Gukayucha juice. And they poured the gukayucha juice into a ram's horn, and the other, I guess I drank some of it, and somebody else drank. Now we gave it to him. I'm standing right next to him, and he looks in there. I know how much he hated to drink from stuff, and he's looking in there. This is an ad lib. He's looking in there. He keeps looking in there. He has a gun in his holster. He pulls out a gun. I don't know what he's going to do. He shoots something in the gukayucha juice, and then he drank it. I mean, that is a master. It is a
Yes.
master.
Great. Was it?
Mel Tolkien and later on in Caesar's Hour, I was with him for 4 years here and 3 years on Caesar's Hour, and to see these geniuses of comedy. As a matter of fact, Mel had a thing the other day, and he told us the first time I saw Mel Brooks, he wasn't working for Max Liebman. He was just a friend of Sid's. He gave him jokes for $50 a day. He gave him jokes. And I walk in the office. I was in a Broadway show called Alive and Kicking, and I needed somebody to feed Sid straight lines. And So, and I knew of Sid. I saw him do a thing on Broadway. I thought this guy was a genius, and I was very happy. You know, I'm a second banana in this thing, but when the top banana is the best banana in the bunch, you're proud to be the second banana. I was so proud to be able to support him. Anyway, so what am I saying? What am I getting at? Oh yeah, Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks, he's in the office. The first day I come in, I don't know who he is. He's standing there. And Mel Brooks is doing a Jewish pirate. It's the first time I saw him. It's, by the way, the genesis of the 2,000-year-old man. He's doing and this is him. He says, you know how much they're charging for sailcloth these days? He says, $3.20 a yard. I can't afford to pillage and rape anymore. The first lines I heard out of him. And anyway, the following week, there was a program on the air called We the People Speak. And it was Dan Seymour recreating the news. I said, hey, I came in and suggested it as an idea for a sketch. And they didn't buy it. But I liked the idea so much, I turned to Mel and I said, here's a man who was actually at the scene of the crucifixion. Isn't that true, sir? And Mel said, oh boy. And those were his first words. And then he said, I said, you knew Jesus? He says, Jesus, thin lad, all right? He walked around with 12 other guys. He says, they always came into the store, never bought anything. They always asked for water. I gave them water. They're very nice guys. Anyway, that was the beginning of the 2,000-year-old man. For the next 10 years, every time there was a lull in the office, I would ask Mel questions, knowing he's going to come up with something that's going to make me laugh. And for 10 years at parties, everybody, they said, you got to put this on record, you got to put this on record. And I said, no, I said, it's for Jews and non-anti-Semitic Gentiles. Well, it was 4 years after the war, and the Jewish accent was persona non grata and Myron Cohen was the first one to bring it back on the Ed Sullivan Show, but the Jewish accent had disappeared. 10 years we did it at parties, and everybody used to do with these parties. They make parties so Mel and I can come up. We came out to California, and they made a party, an A-list party, to hear the 2,000-year-old man. And this is a true story. 3 people came up to us after. One was George Burns with a cigar. He says, is there an album on this? And we said, no. He says, put it on an album, because I'm going to steal it. And it was Edward G. Robinson, who was there too, said, make a play out of that. I'd like to play the 1,000-year-old man on Broadway. I says, he's 2,000. He says, I can play any age. True story. And in his infinite wisdom, the dearest man of all in comedy, a guy named Steve Allen. Steve Allen's, applause, yes, Steve, wherever you are. Steve Allen's whole thrust in life was to present comedy to the world. And he said, fellas, you got to put it on record. He didn't want to be, he said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. He said, I have a studio, World Pacific Jazz, where I do my albums. He's take it over, whatever you do, he says, you can burn it, you can whatever, but make an album. So we wailed for 2 hours with about 200 people there, cut it to 47 minutes, it became the 2,000-year-old man, Steve Allen. And five seconds later, we're still doing it. Yeah.
When you came to the show, you were just an actor, you weren't writing, right?
No, I had been a writer in the Army. I was in the Signal Corps, but I always had an act in the Army. I always stood up in halls and I wrote my own act. So I had written a show called Shape Ahoy that I did all over the Pacific. Oh, that's another story which I wrote a book about. But anyway, so no, I was a bit of a writer. So I really felt, by the way, and the writers didn't accept me in the room. They, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's what
I used to wait out in the hall. I used to wait out in the hall when the writers came in, come in and listen to this. And I didn't like that. I said, I belong here. And I came up with the idea. I says, hey, fellas, why don't we do a foreign, when I heard Sid do his, by the way, Sid did the greatest double talk accents in any language in the world.
Amazing.
There was nobody ever nearly, I did it in my act in the Army. I did German, French, Spanish, whatever, but nothing nearly as good as him. I said, I'll never do that again on this show. And I got the idea. I says, let's do foreign movies. And they said, what are you talking about? And I went over to Sid and I took out a pack of cigarettes. But in those days we smoked. We believed them. We believed that they were healthy for us. And I went over in double talk, sold him a pack of cigarettes, and he bargained with me. And there in those movies started.
Yeah.
We did an Italian movie, French movie.
So that was your first writing for the show?
Yes, and then from then on, Max Liebman said, "You're in the right." I stayed in the writers' room.
That's great.
And I had another job there when Neil Simon was working there. He had the voice of a turtle. He spoke very quietly, and I usually sat next to him, and I heard him say something brilliant, and I jump up and I say, "Neil's got it. Doc's got it." His name was Doc Simon, and he was the turtle. I was his voice, you know.
Yeah.
But he became the most prolific and great. I call him a genius. No, genius has to not only produce great work, but oodles of it. And he did 37 plays. Can't believe it.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
you want to get the phone, somebody?
Anytime.
That was a room full of geniuses. There's never been anything like it.
No,
There's never been a collection of people like that in
No,
one room.
and then later on in Caesar's Hour, we had Larry Gelbart, maybe the funniest single in the history of quipsters.
Yeah.
He never needed a straight line to make a joke. Hello would be a straight line from him. He can give you a joke right after.
So this show, this has influenced everything that's come after it. So we're curious about what influenced you guys. What were you? Where did this kind of sketch comedy come from? What did you try to emulate when you were first starting?
When we were kids, there were two things I loved: the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
And then the Ritz Brothers came about. Those were my early influences. Of course, Chaplin and Keaton we always loved. But those were my influences. But by the way, the show of shows, the Dick Van Dyke Show, was something. When I finished with the show of shows, they had offered me situation comedies and things to do. I didn't know what to do. I was doing movies at Universal. I wrote a movie for Doris Day, and I had written. I've talked about this, but it's interesting enough for me to say it again. It might interest you too. And, I recommend this. I talk to myself. Talk to yourself. If you're smart, you may get a good answer. I once said to myself, and I remember exactly where I was on the East River Drive in New York. I was looking for something to do, and my wife said, "Why don't you write a situation comedy?" And I said, "Well, I said, what piece of ground do I stand on that nobody else stands on? You know, twins stand on different ground. One's looking out the window, one's looking at the wall. Sometimes a mother feeds the same twin twice, you know, so they have different experiences." So I said, well, I live in New Rochelle, I work in New York doing review comedy. I'll write about that, the home life of a guy who works for, review format. And it became the Dick Van Dyke Show. And it was because I worked on that show. And by the way, this is interesting. When asked what I'm most proud of all the things I've ever done, I said the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I have a book that I put that in, it's in here. The only reason I'm showing this book is because it just came off the press yesterday and it's available. It is, I'm not kidding, the best thing I've ever done. And when you can say that at 92, you know you're not lying. Because, no, but that's what I looked like at 20. That's a picture of me at 20.
Beautiful.
But by the way, I'd like to read you one thing. It's got I wasn't going to do this. I really wasn't, but I just turned it back and I saw a lovely picture of my wife and I, which she's gone, but she's always with me. May I read the back? You know, the back of a book, it's only one paragraph. The back of the book usually has, quips from friends who say nice things about you. They read your book and say why you should buy the book. Now, here's what I wrote on the back of the book. After much soul-searching, I've decided not to bother my good friends and theatrical associates by asking them to contribute witty words of praise for the book cover. I know that great stars like Billy Crystal, Mel Brooks, Steve Martin, Dick Van Dyke, George Clooney, Jay Leno, Albert Brooks, Jimmy Kimmel, Bill Maher, Sarah Silverman, Kevin Nealon, Conan O'Brien, Craig Ferguson, and Tom Bergeron would be only too happy to accommodate me. They wrote splendid blurbs for I Remember Me. That's a biography I wrote last year. And I'm sure they would write even splendider ones about this book. However, to expedite things, my oldest and dearest friend, Mel, it's good to be the king, Brooks, has agreed to be their spokesman. Now, this is not his words. I wrote for him, too, here. I have read all of the chapters of Carl's new book where my name appears and found all of these well-written, for the most part, funny, and close to being accurate. I would definitely recommend these chapters. I have not read the rest of the book, but judging from the chapters I read, I'd say the odds are at least 5 to 9 that they will enjoy the ones which my name does not appear. I'd say the odds are, not appear, to which my name does not appear, and there are many, too many. I think you should know that I have received no money for this endorsement, nor do I expect any. But it would have been nice if a little something were offered. He wrote that last line. It would have been nice if a little something were offered. Anyway, by the way, it's funny. I was going to bring a book for everybody, but that would be so expensive for me. If I were Oprah, I would do it. But I just got a funny idea. It's like the magicians, how they riffle a deck of cards,
Yeah.
and they force one on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to pick a page, and I'll open to that page, and I bet there's something funny on that page. And if there's not, pick a page, anybody. What? What did he say?
106.
106. 106. Okay, 106. I'm not kidding. We're going to do this. This is great. This is great. Wait a minute. 106. There is no 106 in the book. Oh, yes, there is. Yes, there is. 115, 106. How in just 30 days I learned all the lyrics to a very short song. That's not very funny, but but the song I learned is, I'm a long way from home, and it's there that I'd roam, to old Erin far over the sea. It's an Irish song I learned when I was 6 years old, and but that's not a funny one. But what is it? 93, somebody said? 83. Hey, here's how to wisely use the hair on your balding head. No, that's not. I'll read you the chapters and you'll see the one you want. Wait a while. Here's one.
How am I doing, everybody?
No, in this book within a book, here's interesting. In this book within a book is a book called this here book by Carl Reiner. It's not by me, it's by Carl Reiner. When you type, the K. So
K is next to the L.
day I always correct it, and I said, wait a while, I'll write a book by Carl Reiner, I can write anything. And so I decided to write a 3-page love story. But the only thing that makes it different or interesting, it's a 3-page love story that has a 200-word title. And here's the title. It's right here, 200 words. I'm not going to read it to you because it takes a long time to read. Oh, I know what I'll read to you. I know what I could read to you. Before I was married, somebody asked me to go horseback riding in Laramie, Wyoming, when I was in the Army. And I went on a horse with this girl, Lois. I don't remember her last name. And I got stuck in the mud. Anyway, she was a lovely girl, and I didn't see much of her. I saw her for 3 weeks, and we became friendly. I think we kissed once, and that was about it. But she was a lovely, lovely girl. And I wrote a poem to her that is in the book, and I'll read it to you. I lost the poem, and right before I wrote this book, I found the thing I carried in the Army, the little thing, the tablet that you wrote letters on, and in it looked like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and handwritten, all scratched out, was the original poem. It was called Ode to the Buttocks Bountiful. She was a girl who had just a beautiful, beautiful behind, and I decided I got to find it here. Luckily there's a what do you call it? A table of contents. I'll find it. Do you mind? Ode to the Buttocks Bountiful. Where the heck is it? Well, it's not here. No, it's here.
I know a few girls you could give it to today.
Okay, here it is. Here it is. That's so terrible. No, I just.
Did you ever get her out of the mud?
Yes, I got a horse out of the mud, but I had to pay $3 to have it washed. Oh God, I lost it. Oh my God. What page is it on? Huh? No, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it.
Oh, sweet. Just remembered I had forgotten H.V. Kaltenborn. Ira Wolfer's Untimely Erection. That's a good one. Teaching Joyce Kuntz to pronounce her name correctly. True story. True story. And you can imagine. Jack Paw tells of Castro-Cuban castration. That's a good one.
Maybe it's in the other book.
No. It's here. It's here.
You could probably write a new one.
That is. Kim, I tell you what. Let's keep asking me questions, and I'll ask me some questions,
Okay.
and I'll find.
I have a question about Mel, actually.
Oh, yes.
Given what a tumbler he was.
Yes.
How did the show keep him off the stage?
Mel was afraid to get on stage. He was when he was a kid in the mountains. He fooled around. But I remember we talked about this the other day. He was frightened. He was scared. He didn't want to be on the stage.
Really?
No. And one time we did a show where Sid was coming into a room. He was going to either steal something, and he had to work his way into a very elegant room.
Yeah.
And he had to walk across the room, and as he walked into the room, he stepped on a cat. Cats there, you hear a cat scream, and we're looking for all kinds of recordings of cats. We couldn't get it. Mel Brooks does a perfect cat noise. He has maybe 1, 2, 3. He does. I don't know how he does it, but it's a perfect cat noise. And he had this. Well, when his cue came to do it, he was shivering and shaking. And when it came, he almost dried up. He couldn't make the noise, and he just got it. It came perfectly, but he almost had a heart attack doing it.
Wow.
So
he doesn't seem shy to me.
No, he's not shy.
But do you think it was your coaxing him to do the 2,000-Year-Old Man that got him up?
The 2,000-Year-Old Man was something. Oh, there's one story. Yeah, well, there's one story about the 2,000-Year-Old Man I absolutely adore. When it became a big hit, we did 5 albums actually. We were invited to the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and a lot of money. They were going to give us a lot of money to do 2 shows up there. And Mel was so angry with me. He said, what are we going up there? You know what he was afraid about? I wasn't afraid of it because I knew I was going to get gold out of this guy. Anytime I asked him a question, he did not answer funny.
Yeah.
But he didn't know he was going to answer funny. He was worried that I'm going to give him lines and he's not going to. And we weren't going to do records from the records. We wanted to do a wild show. he was so mad at me going up. He was, why do we do this? I'm not going to listen to you again. He was bullying. We went up and did 2 shows. He was so brilliant to both shows. He was killing them. They were on the floor. They were screaming with laughter. And on the way home, and this true story, on the way home, he's sitting in the back of the limo going to the airport, and the reaction was so big that I said, Mel, knowing what you know now and the reaction that you got from that audience, how much money would you have taken to do those 2 shows? And he said, $14. But isn't that funny? He would have said nothing, but $14 is a joke.
You need something.
166.
They found it.
He found it. See that?
Thank goodness.
166. 166. Okay. I just remembered Laramie Lois. And here's a picture of the little folder I found in the Army.
Can you see in the back?
Yeah, here. Yeah, anyway, there's the piece of paper that was written on. All I remembered, I had Ode to the Buddings Bountiful, and I found it right before I'm going to read it to you. By the way, she was a lovely, lovely girl, and I want to say one thing about her, is I did really like her, but very soon after I met Estelle, and Georgetown University, we got married, but this Lois from Laramie, she was so sweet, and I wrote her a letter. I sent her this poem. And she was so sweet. She actually traveled to New York once, sought out my folks who lived in the Bronx, and just to tell them what a nice son they had.
Oh.
That's how sweet she was.
And you wrote about her ass.
And I wrote about her ass. Yes. Ode to the Buddings Bountiful. In any anthology of poetry carefully bound, poems of love and hate undoubtedly could be found. And everywhere one deemed to look or to gaze, upward pop Keats with Nightingale and vase. But ne'er has there been in verse or in rhyme an ode or a sonnet to a curvaceous behind. To the laws of poets I will not abide, but write as I will of the broad backside. To me this subject is quite as dear as love and intrigue is to Will Shakespeare. So to hell with convention and the great bard, to write as I will of the Heine, firm and hard. I do not extol, of course, any blasé ass, but one that belongs to a lovely, sweet lass. A tush that is soft, rigid, and white, not one flabby, fleshy, or trite. So to you, dear Lois, I deed must ordain, you are the queen of the aforesaid terrain. PFC Carl Reiner, 1942.
Wow.
I was 20 at the time.
You seem, that's a good boyfriend, I think. Who wouldn't like that poem? That's very nice.
Yes.
So when you revisit a movie like this, I know you said what you felt when you saw it for the first time, that woman's laugh was your laugh. How
Yes.
about tonight? What do you think these years later, when you look at it, do new memories come up when you watch? Well, like Imogene Coca, like seeing her again. I mean, she's amazing to me.
Imogene Coca was absolutely one of the dearest, sweetest person in the world, and the shyest human being. You know, Sid and Imogene never spoke off stage.
The
They were
chemistry
both
is
so shy. They'd sit next to each other.
Yeah.
They wouldn't contact each other. But she was that shy. She was the shyest person I know.
Wow.
And then the sweetest person. Her father was a conductor at the Philadelphia Orchestra in the theater there. And she told me one story that I'll never forget. It had nothing to do with anything, but you know who Bert Williams is? Isn't this interesting? It's far afield. Why not learn something new? Bert Williams, not Bert Fields, Bert Williams. Bert Williams was the star of the Ziegfeld Follies. Imogene Coca's father was the conductor of that. The Ziegfeld Follies had a man in blackface. He was named Bert Williams. He was a black man, but he had to put on blackface because black people were not allowed, African Americans were not allowed to come on stage They were in the minstrel shows. They had to put on blackface, and they were black men. Anyway, but he was the #1 star. He wrote great songs. He wrote a song called "Nobody." Who will come to your life? You know the song "Nobody"? Yes. Who will come to you when you're in need of a friend? Who will comfort your brow and wipe your tears? Nobody. Anyway, he wrote a number of songs, brilliant songs, for other people too. And he was one of the biggest stars. And Imogen told me this story. She said, when they came to Philadelphia, he was the star of the show. Burt Williams was. And he walked into the stage door, and the stage doorman says, "Where you going, boy?" And he said, "To where I belong, dressing room 1." And that was a true story about, I'll never forget that. But Coco's father was the conductor. It has nothing to do with anything, but it's historically interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
And that doorman then bought the Clippers. Should we see if the nice people, the nice Jewish people, have any questions for you?
Yes, I'd love it.
Do you want to raise your hand and maybe we'll call on you?
By the way,
and ask?
does everybody know what a good man he is?
Oh no.
No.
This is not.
No, he is. I inscribed his book. I forgot what I said, but it was to the fact.
I remember.
He is to
You
the.
have it there. I'll treasure it always.
No, because I said it in a way that is absolutely true about this man. First of all, he is the greatest host in the world. He every week he plays movies at his house, has friends over.
You're all invited.
He actually has a pizza kitchen. He makes pizza in his own kitchen.
You're easily impressed.
Easily impressed.
Yeah.
Now this I said to Phil Rosenthal, who has done more to give us world pleasure and who has done more to give us world pleasure, not world peace, world pleasure, gastronomically and theatrically.
Oh.
He has.
How about that?
He has some of the great restaurants in town.
Get your own.
Mozza is one of his restaurants. Anyway, and of course you know about Raymond, but also he did a documentary. He did a documentary about selling the rights to Raymond to Russia. It's one of the most. The time he spent over in Russia telling them how to make this show Russian is hilarious. By the way, where do we see that if they want to see it? Is it on
Amazon?
Amazon? Okay, and it's called
Exporting Raymond.
Exporting Raymond.
Yeah.
Worth it.
DVD or something. Okay. I'm so glad I came.
Yes.
I didn't know this would turn into this. But let's see if the nice people have a question for you, Carl. Here's a nice man right here. Speak loud.
Mr. Reiner, you've always played it heavy on the show of shows to that night show, even the jerk, you've always played it heavy. But you've always seen your heart of gold and humanity, and I was seeing you there. And tonight is my 21st anniversary with my wife, and I'm wondering if I could give her a kiss.
Are you kidding? I'll pay for it.
This man wants Carl to give his wife a kiss on their 21st anniversary.
I'd love it.
That's so nice.
Don't forget.
You realize you may lose her.
Oh, we should do it now. Oh, sure.
Holy cow.
Absolutely.
This is amazing. You should check out our caboose, Carl.
This is a first.
It is.
This is a first. Somebody
This is
else to
fantastic.
kiss his wife on it. I am honored, sir. I am honored.
This guy is sick.
On the lips.
Wow! Nice.
You are one lucky man, sir. One lucky man.
I'll give her a squeeze for you, from me. No? Who else wants some sexual favors from Carl? All right, this...
Hey, by the way, is Julianne Griffin here? Where's Julianne? Where are you? Point to. Oh, Julianne. I would like, she just flew in, not for this, but she flew into town. I haven't seen her in years. Julianne is one of the great people in our lives. For years, every Sunday when we were young and free and happy. We went to play tennis on her court. She made us lunches and dinners. But what she is known for, and I want the world to know, does everybody know there's a little-known show called Jeopardy? You know
Yes.
the show Jeopardy?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, well, there was, it's Merv Griffin Productions, and she was married to a fellow named Merv Griffin. And Julianne Griffin was the one who got the idea for Jeopardy. She is the creator of Jeopardy, and I want you to take up a bow and get applause for my favorite show. I never miss it. Julianne Griffin.
Who is Julianne Griffin?
Now you know. Now that gives me so much pleasure, because every time I see that her name is not on the show, it drives me crazy. That she was married to a guy who figured, well, I'm the producer, so I'll do it. And anyway, the thing is that she's the one who came up with the idea. And it's in the book.
Yes.
It's in the book. I tell you exactly how it happens. Other questions?
This young lady is so excited she's standing. Go ahead. The lady standing.
Mr. Reiner, can you just do a little bit about the cumbersome diamond?
The Cumbersome Diamond. Oh, that was a sketch on, you know, that was one of my favorite sketches of all time. It was on Caesar's Hour, and I remember coming into the room, and Larry Gelbart said, oh, we got a sketch for you. You're going to enjoy it this week. Oh, I remember certain pieces of it. To me, it was one of the funniest sketches ever, because I was going to come to a foreign country. My part was some kind of a spy, come to a foreign country. I'm carrying with me a big diamond that I'm going to give to somebody that is going to get into the proper hands. And this is the instructions I was given. They gave me the diamond. It was, by the way, it was a doorknob. It was a doorknob. They said, this is the cumbersome diamond. You will take this diamond, put it in a paper bag, because nobody will ever guess you're carrying the cumbersome diamond in a paper bag. When you get to this town, he says, first of all, it's a very dangerous expedition, so we are paying you 3 million drolyas. You will get 3 million drolyas for this event. Now, when you get to this town, you will carry this thing, you will go to a kiosk, you will get a newspaper, put the newspaper under your arm. And when I got there, I bought the newspaper, and he said, that'll be 2 million drolyas. And I realized I wasn't getting that much money for this dangerous event. However, I must go forward. He said, somebody will come up to you. Somebody will come up to you. Oh, somebody will come up to you and say, give me your diamond. Don't give him the diamond. He asks everybody for their diamond. However, a beautiful woman will come up to you, and she will be wearing a black, beautiful, skin-tight gown, low cut, red leather heels, patent leather heels. She will say to you, give me your diamond. You will give her that diamond. He says, who will that be? I says, that woman will be me. He says, you'll be in disguise? I says, no, I'm in disguise now.
Amazing.
I got it mixed
Amazing.
up a little bit.
By the way, that sketch is from the 1950s.
Yes.
I can't remember my wife's name. That's unbelievable.
Yes. No, but I remember. I couldn't remember who was telling.
Do you write every day?
Write?
Do you write every day?
I write every day now.
Do you think this contributes to keeping you nimble and sharp?
Yeah, well, if I don't have an idea, I get up every day, and this is my second biography. My first biography was called I Remember Me. And then when I finished it, I walk around the block, and every time I walk around the block, something like popcorn, it pops in my head. Oh, I said, that's a good thing I should write down. So this one is called I Just Remembered. And now I've got 30 pages of a new one called I Had Almost Forgotten What I Just Remembered. and I'm 30 pages into it, and they keep popping. They keep popping. I don't know what it
You
is.
keep popping. You're awesome. I think we have to go soon, but I want to tell you, when they told me I was doing this with you, I jotted down something, and I want to say it to you before we have to go.
Yes, yes.
Carl, your professional influence made me who I am. But even if that hadn't happened, I would have been eternally grateful just for the entertainment. And even if that hadn't happened, and I had just met you as a person and become friends as we are, you've made my life much, much better.
Who in the world said that?
Me. To you. I love you, Carl. I think we all love Carl. Who doesn't love Carl? Wait, we have one more question from my friend Doris Roberts is here, everybody.
Oh, I love
Look at
Doris Roberts. Who doesn't love Doris Roberts?
There she is. There she is. Doris thinks we should give Sid Caesar a standing ovation. Who's going to argue?
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Carl Reiner, everybody.